The desert sun in Iraq was a relentless, bleaching force, but its heat was nothing compared to the cold void that had opened inside me. My deployment, the stress I'd anticipated, had morphed into a unique and private hell. It all started with a good plan, or so I'd believed. My wife and I, both wanting a family, saw my deployment as a grim opportunity. We'd use the hazard pay and separation allowance to obliterate our debt, clearing the slate for our future. Her best friend back home offered a lifeline, a room for a modest $300 a month. It was perfect. The goodbye at the deployment terminal was cinematic in its pain. She clung to me, tears soaking my uniform, whispering promises of a family and a life waiting for me on the other side of this year. For the first 8 weeks, the connection held. Then, the atmospheric drag began. Her replies in our scheduled calls grew shorter, drifting from paragraphs to sentences, then to monosyllables wrapped in static. Fine. Okay. Tired. This was a woman who could talk for an hour about the texture of a new blanket. Her silence was a scream in a vacuum. Then came the request for space. Space. From a husband 10,000 miles away in a war zone. The word echoed in the plywood bee hut, absurd and terrifying. My mind, desperate for an anchor, snagged on a memory. A guy from our hometown, always lurking at the edges of group photos. His comments just a little too familiar. I'd never been jealous, trusting her implicitly. But now, a sick curiosity took hold. I logged into our shared phone carrier account and used a service to clone her line to a second SIM. Every text she sent or received would now also appear on a spare phone in my footlocker. The technological click of the setup was the last sound of my old life. The first text that pinged on the cloned device was the kill shot. Ho. Hey babe, I'll see you after work. Want me to save you any of my leftovers? It wasn't sent to me. The world didn't go dark, it became hyper-focused, pixelated on that tiny screen. A 35-pound weight melted from my frame in a week, as I became a ghost in my own life, sustained by a diet of dread and digital betrayal. I was a voyeur to my own destruction. I watched their lexicon evolve, from flirty to familiar, to planning. They talked about our debt being paid off with my money. They discussed baby names. They got matching I love you tattoos, permanent etchings of a temporary lie. She told him, and later, when I finally confronted her and she admitted it, she told me that he was better than me. In every way. The intimacy of the cruelty was its own weapon. For 2 months, I let it flow, collecting evidence in a digital reservoir of pain. The revenge, when it came, was not a hot burst of anger, but a cold, calculated severing. On a day I marked on my mental calendar, I froze the joint bank account. I changed every password, email, utilities, streaming services to complex strings of army acronyms and inside jokes she'd never decipher. I became a digital fortress, and she was outside the walls. I blocked her on every platform. The silence I imposed was absolute. The dominoes fell with a satisfying, distant clatter. Repossessed car. Eviction. The prized designer purses and sneakers she'd bought with the deployment money sold online. For survival cash. I learned she and he had gotten jobs at a local restaurant. So, I weaponized the truth. I posted curated, time-stamped screenshots of their conversations about building a life, juxtaposed with her simultaneous texts to me about finding herself. Our mutual friend circle saw it all. Then, the calls to the restaurant started complaints about rude service from that new couple. A few orchestrated dine and dashes on their shifts. They were both fired. She tried the nuclear option, calling my command. She claimed abandonment, a destitute dependent. But my commander had seen my hollowed-out eyes 4 months, had quietly noted my drastic weight loss. He knew. Focus on your job, Sergeant, was all he said, shutting down her claims. The system, for once, protected the one holding the line. Then, the final twist of the knife, a month before my redeployment. A call from an unknown number. Her voice, oddly flat, impregnant. The timeline was undeniable. It was his. The divorce paperwork, already in motion, became my sole mission. I finalized it before the child was born, severing all legal and financial ties just as the plane touched down on American soil. I was back, but not home. Home was an idea she had demolished. The calls from her, however, never fully stopped. They were distress signals from a ship she had chosen to board. 5 months pregnant, she called sobbing after a catastrophic fight with him. Where should I go? The question hung in the air, a relic from a life where I was her answer. Sorry, I said, the word clean and final. Not my problem anymore. This January, the tone changed. It was fear. A call from a mutual friend's phone. Her voice a shaky whisper. He hit me. I don't know what to do. A part of me, the part that had loved her, recoiled. But the larger part, the scarred part, spoke. Maybe you don't cheat on your deployed husband for a guy who talks a big game. Her retort was predictably defensive. Well, I guess you're happy about this. No, I replied, the truth stark and simple. But I'm glad I know I'm not the bad guy in this story. The following month, another call. The script was complete. He's cheating on me with 2 other girls. I'm sorry. I regret everything. I fucked it all up. The validation was there. Ash dry and tasteless. Yeah, I sighed into the phone. You did. The story has no clean ending. The depression she installed is a tenant in my mind I'm still learning to evict. The trust she burned is a scorched earth policy I carry into new relationships. Yesterday, she called again. The request was for money, help with rent. The cycle of consequence, it seems, is a long and winding road. I said no. The man who cloned a phone to hold on to a lie is gone. What's left is a man learning to build on a foundation of hard-earned truth, proof etched not in matching tattoos, but in the quiet understanding that sometimes survival is the only victory that counts, and it is enough.